Through the My School website, NAPLAN has become big brother to teachers, and news media exacerbates this. News media are seen as a professional authority, where they inform the public using narratives and are able to use the narratives to create moral panic. What is meant by news media? Simply, the news media are the elements of mass media that deliver news to the public. This includes newspapers, magazines, radio, televisions, and more recently, the internet.
Here are some interesting stats about our news media. Nearly 13 million Australians have subscriptions to the internet, where online newspapers and TV have become very popular. The Daily Telegraph, one of our biggest newspapers, claims to sell 999,000 copies in a week. And ratings of Channel 7 News shows that each night hundreds of thousands to just over 1 million people tune in. From these three simple facts, it is fair to assume our news media is in a position of power, as they can broadcast messages to a significant amount of people.
So what has the news media reported in relation to education? Overall, the news media have been reporting that poor NAPLAN scores are a result of inadequate teaching. This assumption surrounding teachers has become an issue of public interest, as individuals read or hear many stories suggesting the same ideas. Here's a Factiva database bar graph that shows the frequency of the term NAPLAN in Australian newspapers. And here are just a few of the many news headlines created about NAPLAN on television. Currently it is 2016, but the negative mark given to teachers began in 2008 when NAPLAN was first implemented in our schools for years 3, 5, 7 and 9. The idea behind NAPLAN began just 1 year before, during 2007, when education ministers including Julie Bishop agreed that the standardised testing of children needed to change. This is when NAPLAN started to become the subject of news media stories.
Although many teachers protested against it, the federal government went ahead and launched My School in 2010. My School is a website that shares information about schools to the public, which includes a comparison of schools according to area by scoring them, and it also provides excessive data on NAPLAN scores of a selected school in comparison to national averages. The website claims that they made this information available to the public as it gives them a chance to see how schools are performing internally and externally. During this time, an analysis was undertaken. Newspapers made it evident that teachers were attempting to prevent the publication of school results so that parents and families in the general public could not blame them for poor results. At this time, the newspapers took great interest in reporting teachers that were threatening to not administer the tests so that there would be no results to publish on the My School website.
Papers took to the side of the former Australian Education Union President Angelo, as they both suggested that teachers were just scared that the publication of results would show their quality of education, insinuating that the protesting teachers had something to hide, that these protesting teachers were of poor quality in the first place. This is an example of the underlying connection between the government and news media, where occasionally the government is either in charge of the agenda, which is broadcasted by the media, and at other times it is the media who initiates a discussion where the government has to respond. During this time, when teachers, NAPLAN and schools were constantly being advertised by news media outlets, teachers began to communicate that they were under a significant amount of pressure to ensure their students and school performed highly, at the expense of quality teaching and possible job loss.
The news media took the chance to promote former Prime Minister Julia Gillard's comments that teachers cheated on the test and schools needed to take responsibility for their actions. Again, the government and news media were working together to inform the public that teachers are solely to blame. The news media even took it one step further by publishing the results of schools and comparing them to previous years, again blaming teachers and schools for the downfall of results.
Standardized testing sacrifices students' individual needs. Teachers are made to teach the test to keep their jobs, and students can be encouraged to skip the test or cheat with teachers' help. This doesn't reflect the intent of NAPLAN to provide equitable education. It overlooks students and the system fails them. Because the government holds schools and teachers accountable rather than themselves, immense pressure is placed upon teachers and schools, when in fact policymakers have the most effect on the education system. The news media, given their position in society, should stop covering stories that reject teachers and schools' achievement, and instead work towards providing support to teachers and schools by demanding that government provide the resources needed to raise student NAPLAN results.
created using Powtoon.